Hi, welcome to Inside View. We appreciate you joining us this evening. My name is Cory Burnell, and I'll be your host. And we're joined with our Calaveras County District 3 Supervisor, Mike Oliveira. Mike, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Cory.
Pleasure to see you. And we know you've been a guest here at Public Access TV several times, so thank you for your time. Well, Mike, this is your first tour of duty as a supervisor for our county. Why don't you share with our viewers a little bit about your past in public service? I know that it goes back a long way.
Well, it does, and I've really enjoyed my life so far, if you will. Started out with law enforcement with the Oakland Police Department, and then I was retired from the Oakland Police Department and went into the private sector, ending up working for a law firm as their case evaluator. And that led to a position as a corporate safety director for a very large engineering construction company, dealing with Caltrans projects, airports, things of that sort. And that turned out to be very rewarding. And that led me to purchasing our home up in the Arnold area. And at that time, the sheriff was one of my fellow police officers in Oakland. He had retired from Oakland, Dennis Downham, and became the sheriff.
Sure.
And we ran into each other, and he said, "Why don't you come up and be a part-time deputy for me?"
Okay.
And I kind of went, "Dennis, I'm a little too old and fat for that." And he said, "No, we need the old wisdom guys because I can't keep the young guys." And that turned out to be a great, rewarding period in my life. I was one of the oldest deputies that I was actually cleared to work patrol, and that led to a temporary position that the resident Arnold deputy. And that's what kind of led me into politics, if you will.
Interesting. Now, so when you went to Arnold, did you think that this was going to be retirement for you, and then you kind of got fished out of it? Is that?
I thought I was just about ready to sit down and go fishing a lot.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to make time to go fishing. To be honest with you.
Right?
Someday.
Yeah.
Someday. Another 4 years. Well, we'll look at that real hard.
Yeah. Certainly. I know you'll have some decisions to make coming up here. But, we've had quite an active and entertaining, you might say, last 6 to 12 months, even, about that period of time here in our county politically, but also with the weather, what we've had here this winter. And seems anywhere you go in the county, we're all talking about how much rain we've got or how many storms and what that's doing to the county. Your district certainly gets hit hard in a winter like this.
Yes, we do.
Can you speak to some of the way in which it's impacting your constituents and the businesses there? Have you seen, for example, an influx in business because of the ski season there at Bear? How are you dealing with some of the storm damage that's occurred? Can you speak to those topics?
I'd be happy to. Being on the Highway 4 corridor, and if you will, the gateway to the Sierras, that term's been used a little bit. And, of course, we have Bear Valley right up there, one of the greatest resorts in the Sierras because it's big enough to make skiing enjoyable and small enough to make it family events.
Right.
But getting there is sometimes a chore. But we realize the boost in the economy up to Highway 4 and our restaurants, our gas, our motels, hotels in the Murphys area. And more importantly, we see a lot of second home rentals, which works very well for our community. And I live in Blue Lake Springs, and I think there's approximately 2,200 improved lots with houses on them, and about 72% of that are second home owners. So, unfortunately, they're in a position where they pay the taxes but don't get a vote.
Interesting.
Over the last 3 years, we've been able, through, of course, Public Access TV, with our live broadcasts now of our Board of Supervisors meetings, that the folks in the Bay Area or Sacramento or even as far away as Wisconsin who own homes here, second homes, now are taking an active part, and I'm getting contact from those folks.
Very interesting.
So, and that's rewarding. That really is, because not only are we able to represent our local constituents, but the folks that, when they retire, if you will.
Right. Very well might be
they're seeing
locals.
Moving up in this area. So I'm pretty happy with that. There's more we can do, but I like the way it's going and the direction it's going.
Now, on some of the difficult weather we've had, how much strain has that put on our county staff and the Board of Supervisors to go ahead and respond to some of the storm damage that we're seeing across the county? And then I imagine you're interacting with state agencies quite a bit.
Yes, we are, Cory. Just in Calaveras County, in the January storm event, was one of our major ones. From that period of, I think, around the 13th of January to the middle of February, the county is seeing, and it's still tallying, about $5.7 million of storm damage. That's to our roads, our culverts, things of that sort. The county can't afford to actually make those repairs. What we have done, and through Jeff Krovis, our Public Works Director, was a fantastic job. He has applied for several grants, if you will, and also solicited financial help from FEMA and the Office of OES. There is one particular thing, and we'll probably want to talk about that when you bring it up, is the Blagan Road issue, and I'll go into detail when we get there.
Sure.
But we are making repairs now. Unfortunately, when you get government money involved, you make the repairs and get reimbursed. And that's a percentage, basically 75% on the FEMA side, and then the remaining 25% will be 75% funded by OES. So the county is still on the hook for about 6.25%. Having said that, after $5.7 million,
doing the math in my head,
our total road budget is about $700,000 a year for repairs.
That's it. Yeah.
We went through that a long time ago. But we're still able to make those repairs. We're still able to open up what we can. It's a constant task and a constant battle, and we're soliciting help from every agency we possibly can.
Now, I imagine each one of these topics that we deal with storm damage repair, is whether it's roads or something like down trees or power lines, there are multiple parties involved with responsibility, right? So if we look at, say, the Butte fire, for example, now you mentioned FEMA, and we're saying, well, FEMA comes in here to help with some of these winter storm repairs. They've been here for a long time on the Butte fire, for example. So where are we at on that, since we're kind of in that genre in the discussion here? Where are we at kind of with the Butte fire and then government monies being spent there, its impact on the county budget, and if you can give us kind of any runway on things that are happening there.
I'll try. First, we have to look at this as two different entities, two different events. The Butte fire has its significant problems, which we're going to be dealing with that for 5 years. FEMA has participated in that. OES has. And there's designated programs that have to be performed towards their standards, because that's the purse strings. If you're going to pay the bill, you're going to tell them how to get things done. And that's been a challenge for us. Fortunately, there's been peaks and valleys, and we're on the right track, we're on the right road, and we're starting to see some of that work develop and some of those reimbursements coming back to us. But that was a challenge in the last 2 years.
Those types of things move very slowly when you've got to come in compliance with particular programs, I can certainly understand
it's
that.
It's a strain not only on the Public Works Department, if you will, but on every department in the county. Accounting, our auditor's office, our assessor's office is involved in that. Of course, our administration is involved in that, and our supervisors are deeply involved in that.
Well, when you get an event like that staff has never been through before, all of a sudden they're probably dealing with agencies and paperwork that they've never seen before.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of a learn as you go.
Everybody has to learn the same thing, and everybody has to look at each other and their performance and where we can help each other, and we're going to make some mistakes.
Sure, certainly.
But if we learn by them, we're ready for the next one.
Now, you mentioned the Blagan Road damage there, and obviously this is very important to your constituents in District 3. So
it is.
Can you kind of bring them up to speed on what you know of it and where we're at now?
Okay, now this is a result of the January event, which started, I believe, on the 13th to the 18th. We had a tremendous amount of water on our runoff areas. Had some snow issues. We have a great snowpack this year, something we haven't seen in 5 years. And that all adds to everything that we're going to be talking about. And Blagan Road is a one-way paved county road that leads to White Pines, which is off of Highway 4, but it's not considered Arnold. And I have to say that because folks in White Pines are very, very proud of being White Pines. And there is a culvert that runs through there. I think it was a 54-inch or 48-inch culvert, pretty substantial size, and it wiped out, took out the road. To compound that problem, we had CCWD installing new supply water lines in there. They originally, when we found out that we have a problem there, and that one thing I really enjoy is being notified by Public Works and by our Sheriff's Department. If something happens in our districts as a supervisor, we're usually appraised of it. I was out there the night that happened and took a look and did an assessment with CCWD personnel. And I could tell this is going to be a major event. Unfortunately, that Blagan Road leads to White Pines Lake and White Pines Park, which is used tremendously during the summer and fall months of the year. Used by our folks that, remember we talked about those part-time owners that pay the taxes and don't get a vote? Very, very important to them. Of course, I was getting the phone calls and getting the emails about that. More importantly, we have the Moose Lodge down there, which is kind of a center point for society, if you will, or social events. Sure. They do a great job with the community events in Arnold, and they were completely shut off. There was no way you could get to the Moose Lodge because the bridge was out. That's included in the storm dam. Remember we talked about that 5.7?
Yeah.
Well, we were looking for a place or looking for a method to get access to the Moose Lodge and White Pines Lake. Well, it's not quite that easy because when the storm washed out it's washed out what's called embankments or abutments. That's where you put the ends of the bridge, if you will. So now we have to wait until the damage our most damage is realized. Then we have to come in and engineer structurally. We need to make sure that those abutments are strong enough to support a bridge. Now, granted, we don't have a lot of heavy vehicles come over there, but we do have our fire and rescue people, and that was the key. That was the key there. FEMA was really not entertaining the idea of spending $150,000 for a bridge to take care of a recreational area and the Moose Lodge. We were able, through Jeff Provis, through Mike Johnson, Chief Johnson of Ebbets Pass Fire, and making a presentation to the Board of Supervisors, which was forwarded to Office of OES, Emergency Services, Office of Emergency Services statewide, and to FEMA, because that's the route you have to take.
Sure.
Their presentation and the information they brought convinced FEMA to say, okay, you have an issue. Because we couldn't get fire rigs. If we had a forest fire up there, or if we have rescues at the lake, which we have every year,
sure,
we've got to get our units in there. We've got to get our medical, our paramedics in there, our fire rigs, and those rigs are 80,000 plus. So we had to find a bridge that would handle that weight. Jeff found one. It's actually manufactured in England.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's not London Bridge, is it?
No.
It'd be more than $150,000. Yeah.
So anyway, with that, we were able to come at FEMA again and say, look, we really need it for public safety. They said, that we can consider. So right now, what we're waiting for is a final approval from FEMA to go ahead and fund the $150,000 it's going to take to put that bridge in there. The bridge costs $75,000, but there's another $75,000 in engineering and construction to beef up those embankments, and that's a temporary fix. But it's not a rental on the bridge; it's a purchase of the bridge, and that way we can take that bridge and use it for other events in the county. That's why it's so important that we stay in contact with FEMA. I would love to say that we got that authorization to go ahead and purchase that bridge. We've got everything set up. We've got our engineers in place. We've got our construction companies in place. They're taking a look at what they have to do. We just don't have the funding source from FEMA yet. And I would say we're probably that close. We had to submit a couple more documents at their request here last week. And we're in contact with them constantly, daily. Jeff Probus is with Office of Emergency Services, waiting for the go-ahead to go ahead and purchase that bridge and put it in place.
Now, it would seem to me that due to the emergency nature of the need for the bridge, that we don't necessarily maybe have to go through a bidding process in order to get this done. I mean, are we able to, of course, if it's FEMA money, perhaps that's not even relevant to the county. Can you speak to...
It is, and here's what happens on that. FEMA will finance repairs that will be long-lasting, sustainable. In other words, they don't want to Band-Aid it. They want to fix it so it doesn't happen again.
So they don't have to come back, sure.
Right. We could go in there with some excavators or something, put in some more culverts, resurface it, and good to go. But FEMA won't buy that. They want it engineered. They want to fix it forever, if you will, which won't last forever. But they want the job done right. And I can understand why. Some of our other repairs or some of our other projects we've done in the county, we can do, as you stated, on an emergency basis. If it's a repair that's going to last, once again, we don't have to go to a bid process. Jeff Probus has the ability to say, okay, we need to do this. There's a dollar amount. I believe it's $50,000. He has to come to the board. But we can fix those things right away if we have the manpower.
Right.
There's another problem. Some issues we do have to go out to bid. On the Blagan Road, it does have to go to bid, has to go to bid per FEMA specifications. Okay. They're paying the bill.
Right.
So that's where we stand.
Well, you speak to manpower, and one of the topics we could probably cover tonight is a little bit about budget and staffing, and if you're seeing challenges there with some of the strains on the county. And perhaps that could lead us into budget for law enforcement, for example, as we're I can't remember a time in my life where we've not had enough money for law enforcement. It's one of our highest priorities in government. So, yeah, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with funding and the budget and some of the priorities you see there? Yeah,
I would love to talk about that. Coming back from, that's what I'm most familiar with. I'm actually hands-on with our law enforcement situations here in Calaveras County. We are trying to recover from a period of 10 plus years of reducing our budgets year by year by year by year. And not just the sheriff's department, but in all departments. There's been mandatory 10% cuts, things of that sort. We're trying to recover from that. Now you throw on other duties. You throw on our storms. You throw on our tree mortality. We'll talk about that, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Then we talk about something that is kind of new in law enforcement. I'd say within the last 15, 20 years. Now, a law enforcement officer can take his PERS retirement, public employees retirement system, which is statewide, run by the state, and he can go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and not lose his years of service and retirement investments. Being one of the lowest compensated departments in the state, I think we're fourth lowest. We have a problem with our deputies not making enough money to sustain a livelihood. I mean, I know deputies that their houses are close to foreclosure because they just don't make the money that Amador, or Tuolumne, or San Joaquin County, or Sacramento County, or Sacramento PD, Oakland Police Department, if you will. And they're sticking in here as best they can, but it's just a matter of time. I've tried as a supervisor to improve that situation, but I think this year is going to be really the widowmaker, if you will. The lines being drawn. I don't think that our employees, our county employees, have given. I think they're they're ready to say it's time to give back. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know where that money is.
Sure.
Don't know where it's at.
You know, you speak of, I've lived here since 2004, and I'm familiar with friends of mine who are deputies who now are elsewhere, El Dorado County, for example, and I know they had young families, and this is just simply a career move they need to make.
Sure.
It's always made me think that we're kind of like the Oakland A's in Major League Baseball, right? We recruit the guys, train them, and then they get a new contract deal with somebody else who can pay them.
Well, that's a fact of life.
Yeah, it happens, unfortunately. You know, one of the items obviously discussed in our community is the impact of the Measure C vote and whether that can help fix some of the budget issues. For our viewers, to remind them, that's a tax on commercial marijuana grows of $2 per square foot, if I'm not mistaken, was Measure C.
Yeah, and it's there's a little bit more to it.
Okay, well, I'll let you explain it since
and this was
you're
passed
our
by the
supervisor.
voters.
Yeah.
And basically what it is on the outdoor cultivation.
Okay.
There's a $2 tax, if you will, on per square foot of canopy size. Now, most people in this business, or most states or agencies, they may use canopy size, they may use plant number, whatever their methods and formulas are. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, for the indoor cultivation, which is substantially lower sometimes, I think it's up to 10,000 square feet indoor, there's a $5 per square foot canopy.
Okay.
And then we have another revenue stream where, effective January 1st of this year, we collect a 7%, I don't want to call it an excise tax, but it's a tax on our dispensaries. So everything they actually sell, the county gets 7% of that on top of the sales tax.
Okay, very good.
So, and that sounds great, but we can't collect that tax because we don't have anything in any process in place to start collecting that tax from January 1st. The plan is, and I'm going to be looking at this a little bit more, is that is going to be going out in May. That tax bill is going to go out in May to the registered voters, the registered growers, if you will, and also to our dispensaries. Now, when Measure B was actually defeated in the courts.
Sure.
It was my personal desire, and we're going to talk about marijuana. My personal desire was I wanted the people to have a say in what's going to happen in their county forever and ever and ever.
Certainly.
And I wanted that to go to a vote of the people. Unfortunately, we weren't there because it was shut down in the courts for, I think everybody knows the reason. There was mislanguage and misinterpretation, and the ballot issue was actually removed by the judge. But that came back to the Board of Supervisors again. Having been on the prior board and seeing what happened with the urgency ordinance, and personally I saw holes from a law enforcement point of view and from a supervisor's point of view that wouldn't work. And I voted against the urgency ordinance. Unfortunately, there were some other things involved. There was a land grab situation. There was cultivation. There was we didn't expect to get 780 applications for commercial cultivation.
Got a bit overwhelmed, yeah.
And it overwhelmed every department in this county. And we're still not where we're supposed to be on that. But with the new board and with the voice of the people, and believe me, it's loud and clear, on both sides of that fence, I've dedicated myself to broaden my views, put my personal views aside, and listen to the people on both sides of that fence and get every bit of information I can before I make a decision as a member of the Board of Supervisors.
Sure. As I understand, the board needs to make a decision in June. Is that right?
It's
because
projected.
That's when the urgency ordinance would expire?
No. We actually extended the urgency ordinance up to a year.
Oh, okay.
So we have a year from when we extended it.
Which
and
was
I believe
February
that
14th.
That was
something like that.
February 14th.
Yeah.
But that's our last extension.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's up to a period. In the meantime, the board has decided that they want to have staff draft you get kind of mixed up on the terminology of this, a ban ordinance draft And I think the confusion comes from when it first was suggested there was a restricted ordinance. So now it's basically a ban, if you will. But keep in mind, that's just in the draft stages. Board hasn't seen anything on that yet.
And also, typically when we're using ban language, we're talking about commercial grows.
Yeah.
Usually the private individual
That's
medicinal
correct.
use is usually out of that, right?
Yeah, but the folks that authored Proposition B wanted a total ban.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Even the collectives, the way the language was written. Now we have state law with Prop 64.
Yeah, so there could potentially be conflict there.
There probably is. I know different counties and different supervisors that are actually talking about that now with their board of supervisors, how they're going to address the Prop 64 issue. A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, interesting. You know, it seems to me that our county has an interesting opportunity to kind of view or witness the impact of Measure C and the tax revenue that perhaps it generates, and given what we might see over the next few months, perhaps voters will be able to make a very informed decision come the next opportunity to do so as to their pros and cons on the issue. Perhaps if the revenue fills some of those budget gaps that are needed in important departments like law enforcement.
That's one concept. It's one concept. Like I stated, I'm taking my personal views and put them aside.
Sure.
I have to decide what's best for the county.
Sure.
And what's best for my district, but that includes all the people in this county.
Yeah. Well, and
there's other suggestions on the board, not on our board, but on the table, if you will, about how we're going to find these funds to, fund law enforcement, enforcement. How are we going to fund different things? But there's no quick answer to this. This is what we're scheduling a special meeting for, to discuss not necessarily the banned ordinance, but the way that we're going to try to collect information. I originally, most of our Board of Supervisors are holding town hall meetings, and I had a chance to take a look at that, and I felt that I don't know if town hall meetings are the very best way to have constructive criticism.
Yeah.
It's too emotional. I elected to go to individuals. I go to homeowner associations. I go to community organizations. I go to individuals. And I was quite surprised. The response was wonderful. Wonderful. Instead of monopolizing the time like I'm doing here with you, you have a chance to sit down for an hour or two and really have a great exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
And I think every Board of Supervisor needs to have that opportunity. It can't be a yelling match. It has to be an exchange of conversation.
Yeah. Well, where we've had a lot of conversation as a community over the last few years has been on the general plan, and this is a topic that many supervisors have had to tackle. I mean, going back years and years. So this is something that everybody on today's board has inherited. Are there items in it that you would like to discuss with?
Well, yeah, there is, and I'm going to try to make this short and brief.
Yeah.
The general plan draft was developed and authorized, but now we have one issue before it's finalized or it comes back to the board. It's plan development.
Okay.
Plan development is not in every area, but there are certain areas that's actually stalled any type of growth.
Okay.
And I got to be honest, in my particular area, in District 3, it's a big, big issue. I think we have to eliminate plan development so we can grow.
Well, I think we know one of the items that will be part of your platform in the next election. Then I'm sure you'll be discussing that more at length then.
I will.
Thank you, Mike, very much for joining us.
Thank you, Cory. I appreciate taking the time.
You bet. Again, Mike Oliveira, District 3 Supervisor for us here in Calaveras County, and I'm Cory Burnell hosting tonight. Thank you for joining us on Inside View.
Thank you.